This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, so thank you again for taking your time out of your schedule for being here with us. And just to give a little info about SparkFlow and what our main goal is, we're here to interview you about your career, and SparkFlow aims to make finance less intimidating for youth. And we basically answer common financial questions through this interview series. And we hope to get like a deeper look into what finance careers are all about. So there's a lot of pressure in figuring out what you want to do in your life when you're young. So we created this interview series to make that less intimidating for younger people. So these interview clips will go public on our website just so that the public has access to it. And the interview will probably be about around 30 minutes, if that's okay with you.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
So is it okay if you could introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Matt. I run R&D finance, and I've been doing this for probably, well, I've been in finance since undergrad, so it's been more than 15 years. I spent a lot of the time in R&D finance, and so that's focused more on companies building products and making sure we invest in the right areas, that we price them correctly, and then we try to find the highest value for our dollars. And but I've also had a few other roles in finance. There's different functions within the finance scope. So at the broad level, accounting can be part of finance. FP&A, which is more on like planning and analytics, is a big part of it. And then there's things like treasury and investor relations and others. I've been in the FP&A side, so that's financial planning and analysis. And within that, there's a bunch of different areas that people focus. So there's kind of sales finance, which is like, how we sell the products to customers. There's marketing, there's general and administrative, there's R&D, and then there's something that's more called corporate FP&A, which is kind of bringing all the pieces together and looking at the full business in total, kind of consolidating everything. So I've had a number of roles, but I've spent a lot of my time kind of on this product focus side, which is what I enjoy.
Sounds great. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started with the first question. So why did you choose to forgo the path of business operations?
That's an interesting question. I've actually done business operations at one point, and I would say, could be very similar to finance. So, at a previous company, I was in finance. I moved into business operations. Now, technically, I moved back to finance, but I would say I never really stopped doing finance. Like finance has always been, even in business operations, I would say half the role was kind of finance related. And when you go to large companies, a lot of the finance values kind of help translate into other positions at companies that work really well. And business operations is one of those roles where, a lot of finance people might move into a business operations or sales operations, or roles that are technically not finance anymore, like they don't report into the CFO, but you're still relying on your quantitative background. You're still being asked to own, a budget potentially, but from the other side, not kind of the finance partner side, but also you're owning the budget from the business perspective, and you're interacting with the finance person. Whereas on the other side, you're the finance person working with an ops person in the business. So you can, both of those roles sort of have a kind of a finance bent to them. But technically one is not considered finance because it doesn't report through the CFO, if that makes sense. So there's pluses and minuses. I think business operations, you can get out of some of the cycles that wear people down over time. Like there's a monthly close that every finance person deals with, where you have to close the books every month and every quarter. And then if you're public, you report your financials. You can kind of get out of some of that close related work if you move out of finance. And then you can, also go work on other projects that maybe you wouldn't have the opportunity to within the CFO organization. So it's pluses and minuses both ways, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Thank you. So right now you're the head of research and development finance. So can you kind of tell us what research and development finance really is?
To add on that, you were talking about some of the differences between finance and business operations. Could you go over some more of the differences, just to clarify?
Yeah. So, so one example is when I ran business operations at Aruba, I moved out of finance and into business operations. Part of my role was working more on the people side. So working with, our HR team and our learning and development team to actually help give a career path to people that wanted to learn new technologies and maybe work on, cloud technologies. And so we got training classes for them. We tried to improve, the way we were able to hire and retain people and put special bonus and incentive programs in place. So those are things that I did in business operations, which you wouldn't do in finance. In finance, you would be more about, okay, well, here's how much money you can spend on people related activities, but you wouldn't be actually implementing, you wouldn't be building the program and implementing it with, HR, if that makes sense. So you'd still, business operations, you'd work with the finance person and you'd say, okay, how much could I budget for, people related learning and development? And then the finance person would help you, assign a budget and carve out the right funding. But then in business operations, you actually have to make that happen. You'd have to find the right training, do surveys with your team, and then get feedback, improve it over time, make sure you're hitting the right location. So actually, like, implementing what you built is many steps beyond just kind of setting the budget. And so that's like one example of, a difference that I've seen in the two roles.
That really clears it up. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so if it's okay with you, could you tell us kind of what research and development finance really is, like what your current job's about?
Yeah, so I would say at the highest level, the research and development organization plans, develops and releases the products that we sell to customers. And there's a couple different functions within research and development. The core ones are engineering, which is, the people that actually are writing code, product management, which a lot of times they used to be engineers, but they've kind of moved into a different role. They're not writing code, but they are very involved in what's happening in the market, what's happening with customers, and they help set the priorities and help work with engineers on what features to build, making sure that we are selling the right or shipping the right features and the right customers, and kind of maximizing our growth. And so they each have different businesses they focus on. So you might have a product manager for, like, if you're at Apple, you might have a product manager for iPhone, and you have a product manager for, Apple Watch and all that. I mean, you probably have hundreds of them. And at bigger companies, they're very specific on what they do. Like, the iPhone example, you might have a product manager who's just focused on messaging app on the iPhone. That's a whole probably team of product managers at Apple, right? So they're very specific, and they're an expert, and they know exactly, what customers want, what competitors are doing. And so that's kind of what product management does. So they work with our engineering team every day on feature scope, timelines, product roadmap, and all that. They also own pricing, so they make sure that we're pricing our products correctly, and they have to really think long term and look what your competitors are doing. Are we too expensive? Where's the market headed? And then within R&D is also usually the security organization. So a lot of companies have what they call a chief information security officer, or CISO, and their job is really in tech is to prevent security breaches and hacking, and make sure that not only like employee data is safe, but also our customer data is safe. And so those are like the kind of big pillars within R&D. And so what R&D finance does is we partner with all of those groups and make sure that we're investing for each of them in the right areas. We help them build. So say product management, for example, wants to build a new product completely different from what we're doing. They have to put together what we call a business case. And what the business case is basically explaining, what they want to do and why. And we try to translate the financials of that business case. So we say, okay, they want to build X new product. Here's what we think it's going to cost. Here's how long it's going to take to build. And once we ship the product to customers, here's how much money we think we're going to. And it's pretty detailed. I mean, we build, comprehensive Excel models, and, we have a bunch of financial tools we use. And we try to look out several years, 3 years, 5 years, depends on what it is. And so if you look at what is the investment it takes to build a product and how much money you're going to make from it, then you can calculate what's called ROI, or return on investment. And you can actually come down to like a single number. And there's different metrics different companies use. But once you get an ROI, or return on investment, you then can compare a bunch of different options and say, okay, we have a limited amount of money to invest. Let's pick the one with the highest ROI. And so what my team does is we try to work with the product teams, and we gather input from engineering and other folks, and then we work on what those projections are, and we help build the business case for investment. And then there's kind of the regular work that all FP&A people do, which is closing the books every month. So there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that we capture all the expenses and all the revenue, and things are accurate, right? Where our CFO has to sign off on financial statements that they're accurate, that we go through audits. So there's kind of the compliance work is what we call it, and that just happens. That's part of being a finance professional, is there's compliance work that's part of the job. I mean, we're the trusted experts on the financials, and so we have to be really close to that. But then what I really enjoy is kind of that business partnering side, which, like I was saying, building business cases, helping the teams understand what their budget is, working with our HR and our talent teams to make sure we hit our hiring plans. And it can be pretty complicated because big companies hire people in many countries and many different levels. You want to hire new college grads, you want to hire senior people. So a lot of it is really like providing visibility and making sure that we, at the end of the day, are investing in the right areas that are maximizing our opportunity.
There are so many different elements to R&D finance. That's amazing. What qualities do you think have led you to your success in this field?
Yeah, so I think, me personally, I've always really enjoyed the business partnering side, and I found out early that was something that I was good at and I also enjoyed doing. So, one piece of advice I've always had is, if you find something that you really feel passionate about and you enjoy, you should try to pursue that, right? And so for me, I've always tried to find roles where finance is looked at as a real business partner, and you have what they call a seat at the table. So you're in the important decision-making meetings, you have a voice in those meetings, and you're able to help influence decisions. That's not always the case. Not all companies are like that. Sometimes there's finance roles where, maybe you don't even meet people in the business. You're kind of working behind the scenes, especially when you're more junior. You're doing a lot of reporting and, data entry and things like that, potentially. And then there's a lot of companies where finance is is very, very highly valued and front and center in a lot of the conversations. And so I've tried to focus on those roles and those companies, and I think that's helped me do pretty well. I would say, a couple just, important things I've learned along the way that have helped are, it's always better to be very direct and transparent, and especially if you have bad news, be very open and honest and have that conversation quickly, and then try to find solutions. And so I think kind of me being very direct and candid with people has helped, them